Hello guys, it's me Luigi Marinus Gaming, and today I'm gonna review Trolls 3 Band Together. But looking back at Ruby Gillman, while I wouldn't call it a masterpiece and gave it a bit too much credit, I still think it is great and a pretty underrated movie, but I wouldn't call it one of the best DreamWorks movies. I still think it deserved better though. But now moving on to Trolls 3, one of my if not most anticipated movies of this year. Was the wait actually worth it? Well yeah. Let me explain. So the movie starts off with Branch and his brothers are splitting up 20 years later. John Dory comes back and tells Branch that he needs his help to save Floyd and get the band back together. Floyd got captured by Velvet and Veneer and gets used by them for power while slowly fading away. Tiny, Branch, Poppy and John Dory go on a road trip to bring every Brazone member back. Honestly, I don't know if I am first person that notices this, but this story kinda reminds me a bit of SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run, and it kinda did even more when I watched it in theaters. Let me explain. So SpongeBob and Patrick go on a road trip to get back a friend who gets used for power, so they go to a big city to save their friend. While not exactly the same story, I did notice some similarities, but I do think Trolls 3 kinda did it better since it was more about family, and it hit higher stakes. I also thought it was a great twist that Viva would be Poppy's sister, if they didn't spoil it in the trailers. But honestly, I really like Viva's character in this movie. She was absolutely my favorite character. She was pretty energetic and I loved it. I actually really like energetic characters like Poppy, Emmett, Joy, Chuck and Otto. I also thought the songs were very good while there weren't as much songs as in the first two movies, which was a little bit of a disappointment. I still enjoyed it nonetheless. I thought the brothers' bonding was pretty wholesome, and I liked Poppy and Viva's song called It Takes Two, and especially the part where Brazone sang along. That was my favorite part of the song. I thought John Dory was very likable. I even liked Spruce, Clay and Floyd. I thought their brotherhood was actually heartfelt and heartwarming. But I think this is more of Branch's story, and I am glad it was more focused on him since he was my favorite character from the first movie, so I am glad they gave him the spotlight in this movie. I like that they explained more of his backstory in this movie. I liked how Branch and his brothers were part of a boy band known as Brazone, which kinda reminded me of Fort Town from Turning Red. But I think Brazone was better. I thought focusing the story more on him made the movie appeal more towards boys, even as someone who loved the first two movies. I also really loved the world building of this movie. I thought the first and second movie had amazing world building, but the world building in this movie was just as great, if not one of the best I've seen in an animated movie. Especially during the part at Mount Rajas, I was at the edge of my seat. I also really liked the scenes with the villains Velvet and Veneer as well, though they really stand out since they really didn't look like characters from a Trolls movie, and that's a good thing since a lot of creatures are different in the Trolls universe. I did thought their motivation made sense since they have no talent, so need to use trolls for their power to sing. That's honestly what I call a great villain. And I like how Veneer was the only villain that was more kind-hearted. I don't know if it's just me, but I thought Velvet and Veneer were more of a threat than the Rock Trolls and the Bergen, since they would suck the life out of the Trolls, which was honestly worse than getting eaten by them. Also, speaking of the Bergen, Bridget and Grisel got married at the beginning of the movie, and they also had a great subplot during the movie which I'm not gonna spoil. This movie also had more droppy moments than Trolls 1 and 2. It's almost like they wanted to expand the love of Poppy and Branch, and they did it amazingly. I also really liked Viva's character, and honestly she became my new fictional crush. She had a great chemistry with her sister Poppy, and I liked her backstory a lot. I thought Poppy and Viva were like Anna and Elsa done better. They care more about themselves, and even when they leave each other behind, it was more reasonable than Anna and Elsa did in the Frozen movies. You actually understand their motives better. Viva was absolutely the best character of this movie. She wanted to save her people and protect her family. She and Poppy had great character development. And I also liked the Putt-Putt Trolls. While they didn't have as much screen time as the other characters, they were great background characters. The movie also tried to be more edgier than the first two movies. It's a lot crazier and weirder, but it's also more targeted towards an older audience. Sure, the Trolls movies were always targeted towards the whole family, but this felt a bit like a Toy Story 3 or How to Train Your Dragon 3 kind of sequel where characters in the movie grew along with the audience. And just like the first two movies, I thought the ending was emotional and almost made me cry. So prepare for another emotional roller coaster. Because there are multiple scenes that almost made me cry during the movie. I will also admit this was the most fun I had watching a movie in theaters this year since the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Which made it kinda hard for me to review this movie. And I think this is so far the best of the Trolls trilogy. It had a great message about family, great songs, likable characters, a beautiful story, and the animation is top-notch. I didn't think there were any major flaws in this movie, but I do know that it isn't perfect, and sure, it's no Sing 2, but I think it's quite close. I would definitely consider this DreamWorks' Sing 2, and I think it's DreamWorks' best third installment since How to Train Your Dragon 3. As for the people who are skeptical about this, I would still recommend this movie because this is another DreamWorks masterpiece that must be seen to be believed. I will admit that it isn't better than Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but I think it's hard for any animated movie to surpass that movie. As for my ratings, my personal rating would be a 10 out of 10 and my critical rating a 9.5 out of 10. And it's my fourth favorite movie of this year after the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Spider-Verse and Elemental. This was my review for Trolls 3 Band Together, and I hope you enjoyed it.